뭐 하는 거야?
피하지 말고 얘기해. 왜 그랬는데? 피하지 말고 무시하지도 말고 그냥 느껴봐.
Oh, this one's a topic, man. I've been wanting to talk about this for a minute. I'm so excited to hear everyone's thoughts on this topic because I do believe it's an interesting one and there's so many points of views, and let's discuss it in the comments. The rise of Korean BL dramas. Up until 2020, 2021, Korean BL dramas were pretty much non-existent. And if this surprises anyone, it shouldn't. Korea is very much a conservative country where the LGBT plus community, to my knowledge, is still very much, you know, it's kind of like taboo. It's not illegal, but, you know, gay marriage is not recognized, and there's no discrimination laws based on sexuality. However, I do want to examine the growth of BL dramas in Korea and, you know, what it means, where it might stem from. Spoiler alert. Capitalism. Before I get to that though, I just want to talk about other Asian countries in respect to this topic. Thailand, for example, is known for its iconic BL dramas. I've watched so many of them, but ironically, I was surprised to find out that gay marriage is not a thing in Thailand. Discrimination in regards to sexuality is illegal in some contexts, and then I don't know how easy it is to, you know, to use those contexts to your advantage. And changing gender is also illegal, which is a surprise to me because Thailand has such perceived openness when it comes to gender expression. So that was such a surprise for me. Thai BL started to blossom around 2014, 2015, and they actually earned Thailand 1 billion baht a year, which is about 28 million pounds a year. Money talks, baby, money talks. If you've watched any of the Thai BL dramas, you would know they don't shy away from grown content. I've watched Together With Me, Thorn Type, Theory of Love, just to name a few. There's so many. It was quite refreshing to just see something where, in such a conservative society, that their TV, when it comes to same-sex representation, is just as explicit and just as raw as you would see with, you know, heteronormative TV. They don't hold nothing back, which even in contrast to the West, like, we barely get that as well. Like, in the West, up until recently, we didn't really have those moments where in regularity you see like long drawn TV shows based on same-sex couples. Back in the day, yeah, we had Queer as Folk and the L Word and stuff like that, and recently, you know, we've had like Love Simon, Love Victor, Young Royals, Heartstopper, but there's not really, on the level that Thai BLs are at, there's nothing like that in the West. So credit to them for being brave enough to actually utilize the genre and be honest and be raw and be mature with these things, because we don't really get that anywhere else. Now, before I speak on Korean BLs, I can't help but beg the question, is money the answer to all our problems? Because if it wasn't for revenue, a lot of these companies would use morality or religion or whatever as a reason to be, you know, to not showcase same-sex relationships. But as soon as profit is there, all that goes out the window and suddenly more shows are being made, which I find very fascinating. Which brings me to South Korea. With an already booming and amazingly extensive K-drama industry, there's now been a steady growth in new and exciting BL dramas. Now, from the brief research that I've done, homophobia, toxic masculinity is still common in South Korea, just like many countries in the world. And also coming out can have brutal consequences, much like the idol Holland, who was recently attacked in South Korea, in Seoul. And he was called some slurs just for being an out idol, which also adds to the issue where a lot of idols there's thousands of them, not a single one of them is out. And there's no way every single one of them is non-queer or on some sort of spectrum, but they can't come out because of the society they live in. Yet this same country they're in is now starting to see the profit in same-sex representation, so they're funding that. Yeah, if you're a real version of that, you're in danger. I mean, that is everywhere though, to be honest. Let's be honest, your career could just end anywhere as soon as you come out. So this is not a situation unique to South Korea. The good of this, however, it does offer kind of like a ray of hope, and knowing that if a country can be as conservative as South Korea, can commission, well, most of them are not on network TV. These are usually web dramas with good budgets, to be honest, and really good writing. And sometimes they have, you know, idols up and coming, like Jae-chan from DKZ in Semantic Era, which is a big hit, and he's still in the mainstream. So sometimes they can have mainstream people in those web dramas. So it's still a good sign that it's not such a, oh, don't touch thing. Although he was warned by his agency not to do it, but he wanted to do it. It shows that, okay, there's a gradual opening and understanding of what same-sex love can look like, and that same-sex people are real, and same-sex couples can exist, and they're normal people just like everyone else. In that sense, I do think, you know, representation does help, and it can change how things are viewed in the general public. Fingers crossed. And I must give Itaewon Class some credit, because it's one of the first K-dramas I watched in lockdown, and they had a trans character in there, and I think they handled it quite well from my perspective. But obviously I would need someone who's trans to verify how they think it was handled, and because they would have the nuance of the lived experience of being trans that I do not. So I will be curious to think what I think, but I thought that was quite brave, considering being gay is such a thing that is still kind of like just being explored in TV, and they're already doing trans storylines, which is super impressive in my eyes. And as an enthusiast of the enemy to lover trope, as I think most of us are, Korean BL dramas do this so well. Like, they do it so well. I've enjoyed like Where Your Eyes Linger, a couple of episodes of Color Rush. I never finished it because it's a little bit different. To My Star, Blooming, and of course Semantic Era, as I just mentioned. And it's actually so interesting seeing Korean BLs where they are kissing and they are doing the devil's tango, like they're doing all these things and they're being intimate. It's like, oh my god. And I love it, because I just never saw that coming, because even regular K-dramas don't really showcase that. They will like touch someone's hair after 13 episodes and it's like, oh my god. And they really take their time with it, which makes me question whether, you know, the Western influence and the Western audience, which is definitely a lot more explicit, like people will be having sex within the first 5 minutes of an episode of a new TV show. So I wonder if that's played a part in allowing things to open up and be less conservative. Maybe, maybe not. But I am curious to see where this journey and where this influence of Western audiences is going to take Korean BL dramas. I do think more and more will be commissioned. However, I am aware a little bit about the current political state of Korea right now, with the new president, who is said to be quite conservative. I don't know where things are headed. Everything's just becoming more right-wing in this world. But things like this do offer a little ray of hope, a little bit of sunshine in what seems to be such a hopeless world. It's nice to see that certain things are still thriving because we exist, queer people exist, queer love exists. So embrace it, embrace each other, let's love each other, let's accept each other, and see the beauty of love in everything. And that's my overall thought on this. I don't know if I went into as much detail as I wanted to or thought I did. It's just a topic that was just on my mind and something that I noticed, and I was just curious to the cause of it. I do think money's played a massive part, but obviously the world is also becoming a lot more leveled and a lot more open and access, so people do influence other people's actions a lot easier now, perhaps. So that's pretty much it. That's all I wanted to say. Let me know what you thought about this video. Let me know what are your favorite BLs, whether Korean and Thai or Taiwanese. I didn't even get to speak about Taiwanese BLs. I've heard a lot about them. I've not watched any yet, but I want to. So yeah, please let me know in the comments, and see you next time. Bye.